So thank you. Thank you for being here with us tonight.
So, well, I've been around the Hendricks for a long time, 20 some years. A lot of you have been as well. And there really is something about these two live their lives that just, if we're lucky to be around them or osmosis around them, is quite a sacred thing. And part of doing the podcast, I'm sure you've heard of at some point, or maybe even listened to, really was for me to capture some of the legacy and some of the deep wisdom that they both share, and that we get to have that in the box and in conversations. That I remember being with Katie once on a call, and she was saying something so brilliant. And I had a bit, not a sadness, but I had a bit of a, why am I the only one in this room right now? Like, I really wanted these conversations that we have to be, out in the world. So that's what gave birth to this podcast that we now do. So Abby, do you want to say a few words about you and your work? Maybe just introduce yourself briefly before we jump in.
Sure. Thank you, Soph. So my name is Abby. I'm up in North Vancouver, BC, on the west side of Canada. I'm a trauma-informed breathwork facilitator, so I love to support people with the tools they have right inside of their bodies, and akin to and such an admirer of Katie and Gay's body of work as well, and the body intelligence, and just love spreading these messages that we actually have everything we need. We just get to tune in and tune out, turn in, listen to our heart, listen to our body. So that's really the work that I love to focus on, with individuals, with teams, in offices, in families, with kids. It's been particularly successful in our home with a very busy 4-year-old. And so that's been a really fun experiment to just see how she takes her own body wisdom and body intelligence and literally runs with it. So that's my work. I'm excited to breathe with you all tonight.
It's funny because Abby and I are on Zooms often, and her 4-year-old, very active and beautiful 4-year-old, she'll pop up often when there is either tension or we like trying to figure something out, and then she'll show up with like her absolute human sunshine that she is, and it was just unlock, and it's, again, what a nice way to connect to our younger selves. So one of the places that we wanted to journey and have fun with you today is in the parts of ourselves that we may not know as well as the ones that we are familiar with. There's obviously things that are going on, and sounds and voices and noise, I like to call it, that happens in the back of our psyche, in the back of ourselves, that maybe we carried along the way. Like one of my favorite was that I was told I was very lazy when I was little, like really a lot. And so I grew up with this idea that it's like, oh, I'm lazy. And so of course I start noticing who is lazy, and I start behaving like them. And it's really that I don't like doing things that I don't like doing. And so when you put me in a school environment where I didn't like too much of what was going on, I wasn't participating a lot, but it really wasn't laziness. It was just discernment, turns out, and joy. So I'm interested in that place. And that is one of the reasons I invited Abby to this call, is because although what I work around and talk a lot about is this productivity idea, which to me is, what is productivity? Is like wanting to go from point A to point B and getting there, like saying, I want to write a book, or I want to start a business, or I want to find peace of mind, or I want to lose weight, or I want to buy a house, or whatever it is that we don't have and we would like to have more of, or sometimes less of. There really is the path that's very easy to see. And then there is this other noise, like I'm lazy, going on in the back of our minds often, that turn out really prevent us from getting to point B, certainly make it difficult to get to point B and not as fun. And so the work that Abby does, really the joy, we decided we don't want to use the word work. So we play, whatever we do. Even with Katie, when I'm like, do you want to work with these people? She's like, no, I do want to play with them. So in the spirit of that, when we identified that there is something, like I used to have a big one around not deserving. I come from a family that's pretty narcissistic. And so there was a good amount of like, they matter, and I kind of don't. I made a tattoo for myself that says matter, because to remind me that I do matter. But for a long time, I would create relationships and I would do things that confirmed that I didn't matter. So I would date someone that would not put me at the top of their list, or I would be in jobs where I was always feeling like I wasn't really viewed for the contribution I was making. It was almost like my life was organized to continue this belief. And so it's powerful, because if I believe that I don't deserve and I try to get towards a goal of mine, there's going to be contradiction. There's going to be incompatibilities between this thought I don't deserve, which often was brought in when we were very young, those things. And so we're very impressionable, and we listen to these grown-up things, people that tell us stuff, and then turns out it really wasn't true. And so to be able to go visit these places, and when Abby comes into the picture and works, with our plays, with some of our clients and the team that we work with, there really is this bringing a oxygen to this conversation we have with ourselves, and give it some space and give it some healing, because there really is no getting anywhere if there's a part of us that believes that getting there would actually not be good for us, because it would contradict something that we believe so deeply. So we have, if you, I was going to say, it would be really fun if you guys don't mind undoing the mic, unless you have a giant barking dog in the background. But otherwise, if you don't mind, turn on your mics and maybe just tell us one word or two, but that tells the state that you're feeling right now. Just, we've all had, I'm pretty sure, busy days. But to kind of bring us together, I'd love to hear like a word or two. So just popcorn, or maybe just all at once, whichever way. Just tell us a word that represents how you're feeling right now.
Open.
Interested.
Exhilarated.
Ooh.
Relating.
One more time.
Relating.
Oh, yes.
Appreciative.
Spacious curiosity.
Weary.
Did you say weary?
Yes.
What does that mean? I don't think I know the word.
A little tired.
Oh, interesting. Beautiful. I'm French, in case that was in short. Sometimes there are words. Actually, Katie taught me a word years ago that was whimsical. I had never heard the word whimsical, and she said it, and I was like, what is that? Oh, I like that word. I can't tell who hasn't said. Is there anyone who hasn't or wants to contribute a word?
Feeling open and slightly nervy.
Oh, thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
I'm feeling a nice exhausted, because I've been doing a lot of outdoors stuff today. Just a nice exhausted feeling.
Beautiful. Thank you. Abby, what's your word? Did you say one?
I think I said playful.
Michelle,
And that still
say
feels
one?
right.
Happy.
Happy's good. All right. Well, I would like to take you on a little. Can I share screen, Michelle, just like that? Yeah, I'm a co-host. Look at me. So I would like to take you on a little. It's going to take very little time, but I would like to introduce you. And if you've been to a thing I've done, you may have seen. Well, no, not that. You may have seen this particular drawing, but I wanted to kind of bring it back to our attention. I was in Normandy when I was, I don't know, maybe 20 years old or so. And we were driving around and there were cows, which that for the record is kind of cute, because some of you may know I've lost 200 pounds in my journey. And in France, when you talk about someone who's fat, the insult, the like insult is that you're a cow. And so now I have people that I've taught this thing to from all over the world will send me postcards that say, thinking about you. And it's a cow. It has this effect of like, wait, I should have chosen rabbits. Why did I choose cows? So here we go. I'm in Normandy and I'm seeing these cows and I'm noticing that they are, free to roam wherever they want. They actually roam and they find a spot somewhere in the nature and they tend to eat grass and they hang out and they spend the day freely when they're not, forced in industrial compounds of sorts. And at some point, one of these cows decide that she's ready to go to the barn. And so that's the path for that particular cow to get to the barn. And the cow number 2 over here says, well, I guess that's the path for me to get to the barn. Okay, ready to go. Off she goes. And then so does number 3, and so does number 4. So now you can imagine where there really wasn't a path on the ground. If enough cows, 3, 4, 5, 10 cows, walk the path, we end up with a path when there really wasn't a path before. And that really is not necessarily the path, but it's the first one, and everybody started following it. And so in this really silly but cute metaphor of my cows, productivity often is the result of we've witnessed somebody else and we think that's the path. Like in school, sit down, be quiet, don't move. Now we know so much about learning and how moving is actually such a key piece of the learning process. So now we have this cow number 5 who's down here, and she sees all this and says, well, okay, that's what cows do. And off she goes. When really, truly, again, in this silly metaphor, this would have been a much more productive move. And the reason she didn't do it is because there is this neural pathway that we all believe, something that we witnessed when we were little. And so when we go to school, and this is not a judgment on teachers, they certainly are often thrown in 30 kids to manage a day. And so it's difficult to do, to be individualized, but we ended up being taught by people that may or may not be the most productive. Like often teachers teach the same thing for many, many years, and maybe they quit in June and they start again in September, not necessarily the most entrepreneurial, but we learned from them. And so we left a little bit with beliefs about what things are. Like the way we manage ourselves is by using grades. Like, oh, if I do the right thing, this teacher seems to like me. All right, I'm going to use this external guidance, and we kind of get yanked out of our own internal guidance when we're kids. And then there's the concept of helping your little friends when you're 4, 5, 6, 10. That's called cheating in school. But then later on, it's called what we're doing now, which is collaborating and having fun together and learning and contributing to one another. And so we need to take ourselves back a little bit in this idea of productivity. And so we wanted to introduce these really cute cows. Aren't they cute? I love my cows. So we wanted to bring these cows to the conversation to shift the framework a little bit, that we have been explained really important things like, how do I do my day? How do I get from point A to point B? How do I build a day that I like? How do I get a job that I like? Like all of that stuff is a little bit infused from beliefs that are very school driven, and it's not necessarily what we want to do as adults. And so we're gonna leave the cows here to eat grass, and I want to take you somewhere else for a moment, which is this place of what I call incompatible beliefs. And that is what's going to tie us into having Abby with us today, which is when you attempt to go to a point B, so whatever that is, it could be write a book, it could be, can you see the screen? Let me move those things. Make a fortune, it could be get in shape, it could be find inner peace. There's all sorts of, there is something that does not exist just yet that we want to get. And in my particular predicament that I've mentioned already, I was 350 pounds at some point in my life. And I've lost 200 and some. And my goal was to get in shape, or to even be thin or look better or feel better, whatever. Along the years, my definition of what that meant evolved, but certainly it had to do with dropping some of that weight. And this arrow represents putting energy towards the point B. So in my case, since I wanted to lose weight, maybe I would read a book, or maybe I would go see a doctor, or maybe I would go to a fat farm, was the thing in France to do. Like you'd be sent for like a month and a half to eat, half a carrot every day, and then you'd be sent home. And of course, you'd regained all the weight because none of the work was actually done. So as you move towards your point B, there are some other things. Let me just move my face from here. There are some other things that are happening, which I call incompatible beliefs. Like in my particular predicament, there was boundaries were not respected when I was growing up. There was a lot, my father had a lot of energy that was not necessarily the one that should be around a little girl. And I saw very quickly that I had to protect myself against a number of things. And I put it out, I know it's deep and intimate, but I put it out really transparently because there really is no shame. I was just a little girl trying to grow up, and my dad was doing what he could do the best without necessarily a lot of consciousness, which is why I love the work of the Hendricks so much, is because by bringing consciousness you heal those things. Like my father didn't try to hurt me. He just didn't know how to interact better. And with consciousness, he probably would have. And so as I was growing up, there clearly was something where, if I'm covered in some version of a castle around me, I feel a little bit more protected. And when I was a kid, it probably worked. And then the other thing that was really bizarre is everyone I knew that was thin in my young years, they were horrible people. I don't know why. I mean, obviously it's not true, but the ones that I was growing around, that's what was happening. And so as I grow up and I start losing weight, I become a not very nice person, and I'm a very nice person. And so I could see that also, if I wasn't this skinny, bony thing, maybe I would be a kinder person. Weird, but I was a kid, and you make those bizarre conclusions. And there was another one that was super interesting as well. My mother was a model, was like a top model, actually. She was like on magazines every day of my childhood, and she stopped, not long after I was born. But I remember as I was getting into being a teenager, and a cute one, and scintillating energy that teenagers tend to have, and she was aging, that was complicated. And I could see that it was like, ooh, okay, I get that. Like those looks, she feels more safe when I'm covered up. In this case, by volume. And so you can see from this drawing that as I was like trying to get to my point B rather, there is all this stuff going on behind my point A, which is really preventing me to get to my point B. And so it looks like I can get to my thing. And really, it's not about not putting the effort. It's because there's a noise, there's a belief, there's something that's acting me out in the back of my mind that every time I move towards, I'm being pulled back. And so in this particular case, by the way, that is how you get to pretty large numbers of pounds, is I would lose 20 and I would regain 40, and I would lose and I would gain, and I would lose and I would gain, because there really was no alignment and there was no safety in being exposed. And so as I was going towards losing the weight, these voices would activate and pull me back to where the initial point and more. And so I want to show this same concept to you briefly before we get into what do we do with what's going on that side, which we are going to look into. This guy hires me many, many years ago, and he wants to write a book. That's his point B. And so we start to write the book, and there's an obstacle. I jump it for him. I don't really confront him or lovingly invite him to look at what's going on in the back of his mind. And so we get to the thing, and he writes the book, and the book is finally written, and there's no Zoom at the time, but we sell it to a publisher, and he's got to go and visit the publishing house. And on the way to the airport, which I really didn't know what was happening to him, but really what was happening was, I'm afraid to be seen, and what if I don't have what it takes, and I'm afraid to fail. And there was some older brother who also wanted to write a book, and he didn't want to do it before his brother, blah, blah, blah noise. And so as we are going towards this kind of meeting the publisher, this guy gets into this really bad car accident and breaks both of his legs. And one could argue maybe it was accidental, maybe coincidental. I would argue that, so this is the predicament I invite us into, which is that we reach our point B in relation to how much we've resolved behind our point A, because point A is going to win. It's like if we don't resolve those things. And so this guy, that was a form of sabotage. Maybe something else would have happened, if not that, but he never went back to write the book, which to me is, how many things are left in our nightstands, in our dreams that really don't get manifested because we have these things, these things that are yelling at us or whispering to us or acting us out. And so I would like to invite Abby to be with us for a moment, because I would like the next few moments to really be a visit of what those things are. And so I'm going to invite you, Abby, to be with us and guide us through a little process to go visit. And I'm going to stop sharing so we can see you better.
Thank you, Soph.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, even though I've heard that story, that example, seen those beliefs, it's still like there's something, it resonates every single time, because I see those examples daily all around us in our world until the consciousness spreads. But something that did really stick out for me in you telling that is this understanding that we can't heal what we don't love. And in trying to get to point B, we move away from this foundation of ourselves, that there was a story that got put in place for a reason. It was to protect us or to protect someone else. And so we get to still appreciate and understand that that story served a purpose at some point, and we get to let it go because maybe it's not serving us and getting to point B anymore. And so that's really part of the work in the breath work, is moving that energy, moving that story out of the body. So I'll invite you into an experiencing practice if you feel called to join us. The breath work that I practice is very gentle. It's all about nervous system safety. So you don't have to go into a dark corner. I'm not going to make you try and move yourself into a hallucination state or run out of air. The goal is really to just move into a place of grounding. And like I said at the beginning, to tune out so you can turn in and listen to maybe what is the story that's present. That's the brick wall between me and point B. So if it feels good for you to do so now, I'll invite you to either close down the eyes or just hold a soft gaze. As you do so, to make sure that you're supported underneath and behind you. So you really feel that assisted rest. Yeah, there's still an activation, an alertness, and aliveness in the body, and a recognition that you are held by that support beneath and behind you, by my voice. And just in your natural breath, in through the nose and out through the mouth, if that feels good, just starting to notice if there's anywhere in the body you can soften a little bit. This is not a place of holding on to, but a place of letting go. And when you're ready, I'll just invite you into an all nasal inhale and exhale. So bringing the in breath in through the nose and out through the nose. Invitation to extend that exhale just a little bit. Again, we live in a society where there's a constant influx of coming into our system. So with our exhale, we can just let a little bit more go. Almost like a wringing out of the cells as we breathe out. And if thoughts start to come up even now, that's okay. They're just part of the experience. They are the weather and you are the sky. Get to let it pass on by. And it might even feel good on your exhale to bring in a little bit of hum. Just to invite in that curiosity, to activate the vagus nerve. To bring you into this place of rest and restore. Deepening your connection to your sense of safety at the bottom of your tailbone, where you are currently supported. And if that flow of breath feels good, in through the nose and out through the nose, just a little bit of an extended exhale. I'll invite you to start tuning into your body sensations. Maybe starting on the back body, just noticing what's present. There's no changing, just a noticing. Maybe even in the noticing, you realize, oh, there's a little place I was holding on to that I can let go of, I can soften into. And now maybe tuning in to the front of the body. Just noticing. Letting that noticing travel down the legs into the soles of the feet. Just seeing what sensations come up from the inside to the outside of the body. Maybe there's energy coming up in the fingers, in the face. So all the ways our body signals to us that something is happening. We are experiencing in every moment. And we can choose to let that experience continue its journey outward. Can hold on to it. And when you're ready, invitation to bring in a nice deep inhale in through the nose, letting that breath linger at the top of that inhale before you release. Just hold on to the top of that breath. Letting it go when it feels good and bringing a hand to your heartbeat. Whether that's over the heart or on a pulse point, just connecting with that rhythm of you. This is where we begin to weave the energy of the heart and the breath. These two vital components that keep us alive in our body, that continue to work and play with us, for us, every moment of every day, from inception to now, regardless of how productive we feel. And as you tune into that heartbeat, checking in with those incompatible beliefs, maybe as Sophie was sharing, your story came up. Maybe just a tinge of something showed itself. This is the opportunity, while you are safe, connected to your heart, to just explore that story. See if you can notice where it lands in the body. Maybe offering a supportive touch to that space, if it's your belly, a low back, the heart. Just offering a little bit of that nurturing connection to the place in the body where we might hold the story. Beautiful. Yeah, really giving yourself that assisted rest, that nurturing touch. And on the inhale, breathing in, what would it feel like to be in point B? To be in that place where you've written the book, you've achieved the dream, you've built the house. What does point B look and feel like? Is there opportunity to breathe out anything that's in opposition to that, or to get curious about the story, the point A, the brick wall? Is this an obstacle or an opportunity? Is this even my story? And is there something that I can do for myself today that brings me just one breath closer to that point B? What could I do for myself, for my heart, that would bring me just a little bit closer to point B? Breathing in more of that and exhaling everything in opposition. When it feels like maybe that action is clear, or that emotion, that experience, that sensation feels resonant in the body, invitation to take a nice deep inhale in through the nose. Full exhale, letting it all go. Starting to find your way back to the physical body, just noticing the feet on the ground, the seat in the chair. Those points that are touching that support behind you and beneath you. So softly flicker the eyes open if you haven't already, and just hold a soft gaze on something in front of you, just to slowly bring the room back in. Taking your time to come back to us in this Zoom room at your own pace. And if there was anything maybe that showed itself for you or that you want to take note of, now might be a good time. Or any questions that came up, any noticings of the body.
You're welcome to unmute yourself so we can hear you again if there's no barking dog, or but just it'd be nice to kind of hear a little bit the sounds of you.
I had an amazing revelation.
Hi, darling.
Sophie, so good to see you.
So good to see you.
Thank you for that guided, lovely, warm blanket of a voice and energy. Appreciate that, Abby. I love the way you explained it, Soph, and then that guided practice. Oh, it was like a aha moment. I heard my brother's voice that say, "You think you're good, but you're really not." It's very specific, and especially if I'm having a good time and thinking I'm contributing something valuable, it's like, you're really not that good at that. And so that's a good one I'm going to be getting curious about. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Well, it's funny, Abby, when we came back, you recommended we gaze on something, and I have an object on really near to my desk, which I'm going to share with you because he's really cute. And so this is kind, and someone gave him to me when maybe 15 years ago. I know you're very cute, I know. And he said to me, "You don't talk to yourself very nicely." He had noticed, and he gifted me this. He literally had it on his shelf, and he was like, "I think we're gonna call him kind, and he's gonna live with you, and he's gonna remind you, because how could you look at this? How could, Darlene, when you have a thought like your brother would share with you?" Michelle's laughing her head off. I just think having an object on our surroundings that helps us, remind us, soften. What do you have? Oh, hi. Wait, are you a little cat? You're supposed to eat me. That's not good. Oh, look at that.
Sweet.
Yeah, so if there is something in your world, or maybe you go shopping for something that, does that for you, that's an anchor that feeds this part of ourselves that was lied to. You know, that thing, darling, you just mentioned, you were lied to. I was told I was lazy. I was lied, or they just didn't know better. And so we don't have to buy it though. So thank you, Abby, so much. I always, similarly, I've been around you when you do those so many times, and still it's just, oh, isn't it lovely to soften up like that? Anybody else wants to share anything about any of this?
I just put in the chat that I can also be really hard on myself, and my initials are JLK. And so my version of the stuffed animals is to think of it as just loving kindness. So that's always with me.
That's always with you, like your breath. Oh, that's really beautiful.
I wanted to share something, and I believe it was a question of like that Abby said of, you know, what do you want to feel? And I was like, oh, just accomplished. I want to feel like I do today, that although I'm physically exhausted, I do feel that I accomplished lots of stuff. And so I have this calmness in me. And so I want to feel that more often. I want to feel like, oh, I have this wholeness in me, this accomplished feeling that although I'm tired, I feel like I've accomplished much. Yeah.
Is there something in the way you do your day that could be touch points of that? Like, is there things where you could maybe check in with yourself midday? Like, I used to have a thing on my phone that would pop up like 4 times a day. And it would say something like, how is your body? And then it would say, how are you feeling? And then it would say, and so if I was on track with the feelings I wanted, it'd be a celebration moment, you know, kind of like, yeah, I feel really accomplished or present. And if I didn't, it would be a really great, like, time to, you know, recalibrate a little bit, recalibrate.
Yeah. Thank you. That's a great idea. Yeah. I'll think of that. I'll think of something to just like put on my phone or just take a moment, a breath. I did realize that I had some moments today. I was just like walking, and I was just in the garden, and I was like, I'm very happy. Yeah, I just felt really happy.
Nice.
Yeah, I just felt very, very, very good, very happy.
Just want to offer too, Dawn, I noticed your dog come in and give you kisses as you were experiencing that feeling. So your dog also feels happy.
Yeah, he does. That's my golden retriever. He is so sensitive to my feelings and emotions. He's like a seizure dog. He's not trained, but as a puppy, I have had seizures before, and he has always climbed up on me. So I feel that I have a feeling that he appreciates the good feelings and seizure feelings. Yeah.
Yes. And Dana, hi.
Hi. We learned a lot in that meditation. The main thing that came up for me was when you said, Abby, allow yourself to have that feeling of being accomplished. And that is something I don't allow myself to do, because I don't feel that if I do that, I won't get to point B. And I kind of I was like, well, what if I allow myself to do that? What's gonna happen? So that was very scary for me. So, but also quite profound in that, you know, I can actually do that. Like nothing bad is gonna happen.
Yeah, you can try it on.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, that was huge, because it was almost going back to that feeling of safety that you were talking about at the beginning. So yeah, thank you for bringing all of that together. That was super helpful.
Thank you. Yes, Heidi.
I really wanted to appreciate this so much because I've been in so many different healing containers and stuff, and what came through, I was just like, oh my God. So what I heard was, you don't deserve to be happy. And then I was like, but why? Like, what did I do wrong? And then I heard you didn't help mom. And then I was brought to this experience, like when I must have been like 5 or something. And my mother was trying to get me to wear some clothing for school or something. And I didn't want to wear it. And I went to complain to my dad. And my dad, I hope this doesn't trigger anyone, but he basically like just beat her up in front of me, like just totally. She had all these bruises. And like, I know this experience. Sorry, I even feel tears. It's like I've known that this happened, but I don't think I ever made the connection of how like shocking it was, I think. And central. And it's so interesting because I often have this refrain, like people who know me, of like, I need to help my mom. Like, I need to help my mom. I need to help my mom. Like, it's like been this constant theme. And there have been a lot of times where like I've perceived her as needing help in a lot of ways, but I've never connected it to that earlier memory, which I think was where that came from. So I'm just like, my mind is blown. I thank you. So I certainly did not expect to receive this gift in this call.
You're a gift to us. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
It's really, yeah, I feel like I need to process more, but I'm also just amazed at the gentleness of that process. And because I've personally really tried to heal in so many ways that with that kind of energy of like, I'm so like, I don't understand, and so I'm like, my mind is blown on in so many ways. And also just to share like everything that you were sharing earlier, Sophie, also I was just like, wow, the way that you're expressing it, and it's just like landing so much. And I just really appreciate your way of explaining things, because I've heard, like, I know of these concepts, but somehow it's like really landing also in another way. So thank you so much.
Thank you. What a gift you are. It's really beautiful in some ways how it's not that easy to get to ourselves, but in some ways it's incredibly easy to get to this because we now can process some of this stuff that got stuck in there. Like when I started unraveling my stories, it just was like, wow, nobody got up in the morning to try to hurt me. People just really try their best, and there really is such a thing as letting go and giving ourselves a life of freedom to free ourselves. And it's funny how my work that is around productivity, as some of you have experienced and know, it looks very go do and go move more widgets and da 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 da. And it really is the opposite of that. It's really more bring you back to that pre-noise, and what did you want and what made you joyful. And Darlene, when you were talking about, I mean, it's just that these things that are done to us and said to us, and it's just, yeah, we don't have to bring them in. And actually, Heidi, there's an episode, how did that go? There's an episode, I don't, for all of you, there's an episode we just did with Katie about how she was talked to when she was a little girl that also got unraveled as we were talking about these things, and it was the most beautiful. Maybe we'll give it to you in the show notes or something, Michelle, so that people can connect the dots. And certainly around clothing and what was done to, I mean, I was raised by a model as a really fat little girl, in Paris, being fat in Paris is being really, really, really fat somewhere else. And so there was a lot of just imprint of that meanness. So find yourself a little, a little bit of that. Anybody else wants to share anything?
I feel compelled to share something from earlier today. I visited my grandmother in an assisted living, and she's 96 years old. She has Parkinson's, and she has a bit of dementia that goes along with Parkinson's. And I was hesitant to visit her, and I didn't know why. And I thought it had something to do with back when I was 14 or 12. She was the forefront of the person who had made my dad do a DNA test on me. And so she was behind the scenes on that. And I was like, what? This is all, my parents were married. And anyway, so I'd always held that against her, and we had never talked about it. Whenever I had my brain tumor removed, she took care of all my medical bills. I paid her back for that. And that's all we ever talked about. I was like, Granny. So I went there and visited her today, and she told me a lot. And I just listened to her, and she was talking about like love letters and the sand on the beach. And I was like, I don't know what she's talking about, but I was just like, were you there? And then she looked at me and she was like, I always wanted you to just be safe. And I'm so glad. And I was like, oh, this trumps everything, And I spent like 3 hours with her, and then she was napping. And I kissed her on her forehead and was like, all right, Granny, I'm gonna leave. And I'll be sure to be back. And she looked up at me and she's like, I hope you do, because I love you. And so my granny and I, we don't normally say I love you, but this time I felt it. And I was like, oh, okay, I love you too. And she's like, I am just so glad that you are safe and happy and healthy. And I was like, whoa.
Wow.
Yeah. I wanted to share that with you all.
Thank you.
That's one of the reasons why I feel so accomplished, because it's like, yeah, that was good. That needed to happen. Yeah.
Well, as we're getting close to thank you, Don. Wow, it actually brought something from my grandmother, which I'm gonna go process as well. But as we're wrapping up, I wonder if you guys could bring back. We don't need to close our eyes but I wonder if we can bring back a little bit of this point B. What is that thing? What is that book? What is that? And it doesn't have to be a to-do. It could be a finding a little bit more self-love or a little more kindness of sort. But maybe bring that up a little bit again and maybe remember how Abby guided us to this very gentle breathing, just to give it oxygen, to just allow, what if I had that life? What if I actually sat down and wrote my book in a joyful, supportive way? What if I talked to myself differently than I was talked to? So I really, my wish for you is to, thank you, Alexandra. I do too. It's like sometimes I mean, I'm so incredibly blessed that I get to see people in that transition towards their point B, and as they unfold and remove and quiet down these things, and they're able to keep their commitments to themselves and to tie it back to the work of the Hendricks that has always been so profound for me, is when I say something that I mean it and that I do it, and that I don't listen to voices that tell me I can't or I shouldn't or blah, 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 blah. So let's invite a little bit of this grace and just, shower it, those voices, and send them back into the universe where they came from. Anything you'd like to say, Abby or Michelle, to wrap us up?
No, I think it's that. It's also, we so quickly move into the next thing that really to take this minute here and allow yourself to just like write down what is point B, in the writing down to even notice and be curious about the story that stops you from taking that action. That's, oh, I should do the dishes, I should make dinner, I should go to bed. To just allow in that oxygen and that curiosity, I think around why we're waffling with the idea of point B, and just like, really, let's try it on.
Thank you guys so much for coming. I didn't mention even Anthony, who's in the room today. I've known for, what has it been, Anthony? 20 years? We've known each other for a long, more or less, huh? I saw your name, I was so joyful. Thank you for coming. It was really fun.
And I want to jump in and Soph, Abby, oh, I love you both even more.
Thank you for inviting us.
Yes, the softness. I feel like to be able to think of my point B, my point A, of just having softness around it. That's what I feel like I generated from tonight. So thank you for bringing it in the way that you did. I think it's just very inviting and empowering. So appreciating you both.
And reach out, you guys. You can find our info. I don't know what you're going to put in the notes in Mighty Networks, but don't hesitate. If something touched you and you want to debrief, or we're here. We can find time and be there for each other. I think that's the new trend. The future is in being there for each other, and stop thinking someone's going to come and solve anything, and really just be kind to one another. So don't hesitate. If there's something you feel would be helpful for you to chat about, or please reach out. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks everyone for
Love you.
co-creating this beautiful space. Yeah. Mwah.
Thank
Much
you.
love. Much love.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Good seeing you.
Good seeing you, Anthony. Mwah.
Bye.
Bye.